Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. It's been a few weeks, but I am back with some reviews of the last few weeks of the 2023-24 NBA season, with everything that's going on at work at the moment and everything else surrounding life in general. I think I'm going to take a bit of a changed approach on this one here and generally look to get reviews out on Saturday or Sunday Australian Eastern Daylight Time. It just fits in a lot better with a full-time work schedule. It's as simple as that. It's going to be the easiest way to do it. It's something I've been trying to work out and balance for the last couple of weeks, but this is going to be the easiest way to do it. So without further ado, this one won't be really in-depth, but it will cover the last few weeks of the NBA. So it'll cover from December 5th and it'll cover right through to December 29th. So let's get into it here. Of course, starting off with Atlanta, they went 3-9 over that period there. They're 12-19 on the season. Got wins against Toronto, Detroit, and Houston. Did lose out to Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Denver. Went down to the Raptors twice. Lost to Cleveland, Miami, Memphis, Chicago, and Sacramento. So a little bit going on there. Guy who played in all their games throughout that stretch was Dejounte Murray. 19.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.2 steals and 0.5 blocks, less than 2 turnovers, and some less than desirable shooting splits there. Atlanta a long way back at this point, 7 games off 500. That's a lot of work to do, especially when you look at just how mix and match currently the East is at the very top. Of course, it's happening in the West as well, but certainly happening in the East. They're going to have to chase a fair bit of tail just to get back above 500. And of course, there is trade talk with Dejounte Murray. So we'll see how that continues to play out. No doubt Trae Young looking to get another coach off and moving once again. For Boston, they have had the best record of any team in that period. 10-1, 25-6 on the season. Wins against New York, twice to Cleveland, twice against Orlando. Also defeated Sacramento, the Lakers, the Clippers, Detroit, and Toronto. Only lost to Golden State. And of course, the man that everyone is talking about from Boston right now is Derek White, and he's had a sensational run, played in all their games through this period. 20.7 points, 4 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.5 steals, and 2.1 blocks. Less than 2 turnovers, 50-40-90 splits. I don't know whether he's an all-star this year. I don't know whether he is one of the 12 best players in the Eastern Conference, but he's making a case. And when you consider the combination at guard is with Drew Holiday and the two-way nature of their play, really tough to stop. Giving a lot of freedom to Brown and Tatum, and Brown having a really nice run in December. Tatum still thereabouts, and Porzingis really chipping in as well. Boston on fire right now. One of, if not the best team in the league. And certainly between them and Milwaukee, will be battling it out, no doubt, again for the conference title. Over to Brooklyn, 5-8 on the period there, 15-17. So only 2 games below 500. Still a bit of work to do, but a team that really does need to start working a little harder. Of course, got wins against Atlanta, Washington, Phoenix, and defeated Detroit twice. Then lost out to Sacramento, Denver, Golden State, Utah, New York, Denver again, Milwaukee, and Washington. So that should give you an idea of where they're going. 2 losses to Denver, doesn't say much. And again, struggling against New York and Milwaukee. So probably sitting where they really need to be right now. Mikal Bridges, their best player at the moment, 18.5 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.4 assists through that period there, 0.6 steals, 0.4 blocks on just over 2 turnovers. Not desirable shooting splits, but again, Brooklyn just proving to be a thorn in the side of teams that are wanting to make a run. Of course, someone like Phoenix would be wanting to try and build back up and defeated them. Atlanta trying to build back up, defeated them, and of course getting the wins they were expected to get against Detroit and Washington. We'll see what they continue to do. Plain team at best, though, with the way that the East is unfolding. Charlotte, 1-11, 7-22. A torrid December for them. Only win was against the Raptors, but they lost out to Chicago. They lost out to the Heat twice, and as well lost to New Orleans, Philadelphia, Toronto, Indiana, Denver, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Suns. And playing that entire period, and I was very loath to select, but he was the only guy that played through all of those periods there. Nick Richards, 9.4 points, 8.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.3 steals, and 1.3 blocks. Heavy efficiency from the field when he's had his limited touches. Terry Rozier's had a really nice run there. And Miles Bridges contributing where he can for Charlotte. Just another bottom feeding team. They're off to the draft again. They're not doing much. They've got a big contract in LaMelo. He's injured. A lot going wrong with Charlotte right now. A lot going wrong with Charlotte. To the Bulls, 7-5 through that period. 14-19. They've started to gel a little bit and really started to push towards being a genuine team around that 9-10 mark. They'll be certainly battling out towards the play-in tournament again this season. Defeated Charlotte, the Spurs twice, Miami, Philadelphia, the Lakers and Atlanta. Lost out to Milwaukee, Denver, Miami, Cleveland and Indiana. So it does sort of show you as well those, genuine top 8 teams beating them. Not getting much, getting some reprieve against some of the lower teams. Did sneak one against Philadelphia. But they've also been without Joel Embiid. So it does make things a little different there. Kobe White, really nice for them. A guy who's done very similar to Derek White and just really lifted his game, come out of his shell and really shown the player that he can be. 22.2 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 0.4 steals, 0.2 blocks, less than 2 turnovers, reasonably efficient from the field. Andre Drummond having some massive games for them as well. Just another guy who went from, $150 million player, a franchise player, to riding the bench to doing what he needs to do when his number is called. They're the kind of positives that the Bulls need, that don't need the distractions of trade talks and contract extensions and players just not committing. So, nice little turnaround period for them. They're going to want to keep working on it towards December, try and get towards 500 and still remain around that play-in playoff mix. If they're going to do that, they may very well stay together. But if they start to fall away again, depends what the trade period looks like. They might see some movement. Cleveland 7-5 as well. They're now 4 games above 500 at 18-14, and they're managing all right considering that Garland and Mobley, 2 of their 3 key pieces, have been out for an extended period, and they're still staying above 500. Defeated Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, Utah, Chicago, and Dallas. Did lose out to Boston twice, as well as New Orleans, Milwaukee, and Orlando. So that probably does spell really for them that they are a bottom. They might be in that top 8 of the East, but they're certainly in that bottom 4 run of that. Nice work by Jared Allen, 14.9 points, 10.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.7 blocks, less than 2 turnovers. Efficient there from the field. Cleveland still hanging around. There's talk about whether Donovan Mitchell now moves after claiming it to be a really good turnaround. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he will stay there. I think the thing to consider as well with Cleveland, when you look at it, is that they're not going to play with a core, not going to get consistent time into a core, certainly until around the All-Star break or after that. So if they're going to continue to hang around a little bit there at 18-14, then they very well should be okay. But they will need to string something together at some point if they're going to have any success. That's the ultimate thing there. You can't argue that. Chemistry is key. Getting bodies into games is key. It's as simple as that. To Detroit, through the period we're talking about, didn't win a game. They only just snapped that streak against Toronto as we speak now. 0-11. They lost to everybody. 2-29, now 3-29 on the season. Cade Cunningham trying to bounce back. 25 points, 4.7 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.6 blocks and 3.4 turnovers. Good, efficient splits. But Detroit just not doing anything, not getting anywhere. The worst team in the history of the NBA. For Indiana, they continue to score points, but they continue to bleed points. It doesn't matter that they have an all-NBA level point guard. It just is a matter of fact that they are acting like a perennial first-round team. 5-6 through those 11 games there. Above 500, 16-14, but genuinely anywhere between 6 and 8 in the East. Defeated Milwaukee, Detroit, Charlotte, Houston, and Chicago. Lost out to Milwaukee, Washington, Minnesota, Los Angeles Clippers, Memphis, and Orlando. Ben Mathurin, the only one to play all of the games through that period, averaged 13.9 points, 3.7 rebounds, 2.1 assists, 0.6 steals, and 0.3 blocks on 1.9 turnovers. Not necessarily the most efficient from the floor, but certainly able to get his shooting stroke from there. Halliburton's having an All-NBA season. He's having one of the best point guard seasons, particularly from a passing standpoint, that we've seen for a number of years. However, if you're going to concede points, doesn't matter how many you score, then you're going to lose games. And that's what Indiana's starting to find out now. That it's okay to put 130 points on the board, but if you're going to concede 140, you're just defeating the purpose, creating a track meet. But I think Indiana just need to strengthen up that area defensively. Don't know who's going to be part of that. I don't know who's going to be responsible for it. But it's something they certainly need to look at. A team that's made a run once again, Miami, 8-3 through the 11 games they played in this period. 19 and 12, really getting back into the mix. Wins against Toronto, twice against Charlotte, defeated Chicago, Orlando, Atlanta, Philadelphia and Golden State, lost out to Cleveland, Chicago and Minnesota. Jamie Jaquez Jr., all rookie first-team selections coming his way. He's been a really nice piece into this Miami unit. 17.2 points, 4.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 0.9 steals and 0.5 blocks on less than 2 turnovers. Healthy shooting splits. Came from a strong college conference against some really good players. Played extremely well there, and now he's playing extremely well here. Not much of a shock, to say the least. Another plug-and-play guy with a Heat culture, and really crucial, particularly with the down period of Bam and Jimmy Butler. They're starting to come back into their own towards the end of the month, and Jaquez Jr. really holding it down and just keeping the Heat in contention. You know, I thought last year was going to be a one-and-done year. I did say at the start of last year it was a make-or-break season. They made the most out of everything, and I thought they may have broken towards the start of December and November. They've bounced back once again, really starting to compete, really starting to have some fun there. And I think they're going to be a top 4, top 5, top 6 team in the East, continuing to push through. I tell you who is continuing to push through and is looking like the other participant of the Eastern Conference Finals, the Milwaukee Bucks. 10 and 2 through this period, tied for the second best record overall over this 3.5-week period. 24 and 8 on the season. Wins against New York, Chicago, Indiana, Detroit, Houston, San Antonio, Orlando, New York again, Brooklyn and Cleveland. Did lose 2-1 to at least one game to New York and also one game against Indiana. But the best player in the East during this period, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 32.5 points, 11.6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.3 steals and 0.9 blocks on 3.1 turnovers. Back to his All-NBA level best defensively as well. Still one of the 5 best players in the league. Efficient from the field. Again, if you're going to take him from 3, you've got to make him. He's not doing that as much as we'd like to see. And his free throws are improving slowly. A mild pass there, and I mean a very mild pass. But the way he's gelled with Lillard, the way Lopez is still able to play his game, the guy who's really rejuvenated himself across the last 5 years, and Middleton continuing to contribute. Milwaukee, they're still a problem in the East. They're still one of the 2 best teams in the East. And I just think the Giannis factor in the postseason is what probably gives them the edge. Because Boston is the team that's hard to trust when it comes to the crunch in the postseason. And they're making runs, but they're not making sufficient runs. I wonder how they'll look. But the beast in the East, Giannis Antetokounmpo, dominating right now, starting to make more of a charge towards the MVP. And while I don't think he's been the best player in the East, he's certainly been number 2. And he's certainly had a top 5 season once again. To the Knicks, no, they're getting there. 5 and 7 on this period. They're 17 and 14. They've just had a huge trade with Toronto. They pick up OG Anunoby, who will solidify their defensive side of their game and allow more offensive touches through Brunson and the man that I deem to be their best player in this period, Julius Randle. Of course, their wins were Toronto, Phoenix, the Lakers, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. Lost to Milwaukee, Boston, Utah, Milwaukee again, the Clippers, Orlando, and OKC. So I think that sort of shows that they're definitely going to be a side that's no higher than 4, 5, 6 in the East, but a side that's going to be competitive. And I think you're going to get a really good look at them through January, heading towards the All-Star break, that first 6 weeks, how they look with Anunoby. I think they can be a lot better team now they're able to concentrate their offense. I think it's unfortunate that they lose someone like RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly. I think it also shuts the door on Joel Embiid and any movement that was going to happen there. But they are really locked in on Brunson and Randle. And they are going to be really locked in on Anunoby. Because they've just picked up one of the 10 best defenders in the league. One of the best two-way players in the league. So New York, they look okay at the moment. I think they're going to look a lot better once this trade goes through, once this process goes through. Going to be a very interesting team. But I just think with the way their form is at the moment, they're going to be 6, 7, 8 around there in the East. But Anunoby changes things for them. It'll be really interesting to see just how this team continues to pan out after this trade. They're 3 games above 500, and with some of the momentum that they can get, they could get out to 7, 8 games above 500 very, very quickly. Orlando had a little bit of a slump, 5 and 6 on the period, 19 and 12 on the season. Defeated Detroit, Cleveland, Indiana, Washington, and New York, whilst losing out to Boston twice. They also lost to Miami, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Cleveland. So when you look at that there, you're looking at, a team that's probably genuine 6th seed in the East. I mean, it's an arduous season. It's 82 games. You've got to have players on the floor. You've got to keep competing. But it's that little period there, that's a 3.5 week period where your losses have come to teams that are genuinely top 4, top 5 teams in the East. You got the wins over New York. You did defeat Cleveland, Indiana, so I can pay you that you're probably around that 5th or 6th area there, but you're no more than that, especially with other teams firing up. The Banchero with a really nice run, 25 points, 7.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 0.9 steals and 0.6 blocks, just over 3 turnovers, inefficient shooting, and again, that should really tell you the story of why this team isn't above 500 over this period, but they are still 7 games in the positive and still looking to make an impact where they can. For Philadelphia, 10-2, another team on a hell of a run, 22-9, they're now a top 3 seed in the East. They lost to Chicago and Miami, but had 2 wins against Washington, 2 wins against Detroit, defeated Atlanta, Charlotte, Minnesota, Toronto, Orlando, and Houston. You can only beat who's in front of you. And considering the absolute tear that Joel Embiid had been on with this particular team right now, I think Embiid's a top 2 player in the league this season. I think he's a genuine case for the MVP. He's certainly been the best player in the East. Just dominating the game right now. Having a better season than he was last year. Maxey having a really nice run as well. He's been a really crucial sidekick. 25.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 0.7 steals and 0.4 blocks. Efficient scoring for second option 2 guard. But you've got to get it done in the postseason. It doesn't matter what Philadelphia do this year. It doesn't matter what Embiid does this year. It will come down to, can you deliver in the postseason? Because if they can't, it's another wasted year. And then the talk starts again. We'll see how it keeps continuing to play out there for Philadelphia, but a really nice run there. Toronto, they've just made a crucial trade at the time of recording, but 3-8 over that 11-game period, 12-19 on the year there. So as they were getting towards 500, realistically, when you take all of this record out, really blows them out of proportion. Wins against Atlanta, Charlotte, and Washington, but did lose to the return on Charlotte. Lost the return against Atlanta. Also lost to Miami, New York, Denver, Philadelphia, Utah, and Boston. Scotty Barnes almost with the genuine second option, second best player on this team right now, particularly after Anunoby has been traded. RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley amongst that trade, they'll be coming to the Raptors. But Scotty Barnes, 23.5 points, 10.1 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 0.9 steals, 1.7 blocks, efficient scoring splits as well. The Raptors had to do something. Now, I don't mind the idea that they're going to try and balance their defensive presence now by adding this offensive firepower. I think it's about an even trade, because you're going to be able to see Barnes and Siakam genuinely get the 2 number 1 options. You're also going to have guys that are going to be able to pinch hit the second unit. So I'm really interested to see what Toronto can do with it. But there's also the concern that you've lost one of the 10 best defenders in the league. Certainly one of the best defensive perimeter players in the league. I think one of the 10 best defenders in the league. And you've given him to New York, who are already above 500 with firepower. We'll see how it goes. It's that frontline defense being held together by Barnes there at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what the Raptors can do. Finally, in the East, we've got the Wizards, and they are no magic at all. Couldn't cast a spell, couldn't cast a fishing rod, let alone cast a spell. 3-9 through 12 games, 6-25 on the season. They are bad. I'm just double checking that there. They're the second worst team in the East. They are worse than Charlotte. That says a lot, because Charlotte sucks. Defeated Indiana, Portland, and Brooklyn, but lost to Philadelphia twice, as well as the return on Brooklyn. Lost to New Orleans, Phoenix, Sacramento, Golden State, Orlando, and Toronto. Kyle Kuzma, again, continues to try and be their best player, but they are their own worst enemy right now. Unfortunately, the Wizards, they have a lot of work to do. Still talk to Jordan Poole will be on his way. What are you moving for? I don't know. What are you going to get in return? I don't know. Just one of those scenarios there. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what Washington do, but I think they're going to have to ride it out and look to take another hit amongst their history just to see what can go on there. Moving over to the top 10 in the East, and we look at just how the conference is sitting right now. Atop the Pops, the Celtics, the Bucks are chasing them hard, as are the Sixers. No shock that the 3 best teams of the last 3 weeks are the top teams in the East. As I said, the Heat have started to make a run. Cleveland, even with a limited stock, making a run. The Magic have fallen. Wouldn't be shocked if you see them drop any more. It's now going to be interesting to see exactly what the Knicks can do with a bit of added defense. Pacers are going to float around that 7-8 mark. I think they're a first-round team. The Nets and the Bulls at the play-in. Again, Toronto about their only threat. The East continues to unfold. A couple of interesting trades. We'll see how that movie script continues to write itself. Over to the Western Conference, starting with Dallas. 7-6 through this period, 18-14 on the season. They've taken a little bit of a dip through their standings, which has certainly probably impacted a particular individual's case. We'll get to that in a second. Got wins against Utah, Portland, Memphis, the Lakers, Portland again, the Spurs, and Phoenix. Lost to Minnesota twice. Also lost to Denver, the Clippers, Houston, and Cleveland. Luka with a huge week now. Well, huge 3.5 weeks. Now, as far as Dallas is concerned, no one played 13 games for Dallas. So it was open slather as to who was the best player. And it was pretty clear that it's one of the 5 best players in the league this season. Luka Doncic, 37.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 10.5 assists through this period. Better from the free throw line, better from deep, passable on the perimeter. High turnover rate, but he's been like that forever. Dante Exum having a really good run with them as well. So Dallas have been able to mix and match a few lineups and get some success. Now, obviously, it's not going to be as good as when Kyrie's in the lineup. I don't know anyone that would think it was going to be as good as when Kyrie is in the lineup. But they're still a top 6 team. Luka's still putting in one of the 5 best seasons this year. But again, it's much like Philadelphia. You've got to get it done in the postseason. Now, I know Dallas had one conference final run. That was it. And it was almost out of pure dumb luck. And they haven't done anything before it, and they haven't done anything since it. So that's going to be the real litmus test for them. It's okay to have this really good record and have these good numbers, but you've still got to get it done defensively. Still a fair bit of work to do. To Denver, though, they've got a little bit of work to do as well. They're 23-11. They're continuing to play around that top 3, top 4 in the West, and I still think that if they don't have a full home court advantage, that may be the only thing stopping them from getting out of the West. But 9-4 through this period here. Wins against Atlanta, Chicago, defeated Brooklyn twice, also defeated Dallas, Toronto, Charlotte, Golden State, and Memphis. Lost to the Thunder twice, which does say a lot because I think the Thunder are genuinely a conference final chance along with Minnesota. We'll get to them as well, along with the Clippers and Houston. But Jokic still continuing to put forward his case as the best big man in the league. 21.8 points, 11.6 rebounds, 8.2 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.9 blocks. Less than 3 turnovers, 53% from the field, 42.9% from deep, 88.4% from the free throw line. Aaron Gordon is currently out indefinitely. They've been mixing and matching their lineups. They've had veterans step up and win games for them. That's the thing that was questionable. What was their depth? What was their rotations? What was their success? And they've answered those questions. Now, can they continue to build a record and just get some sort of home court advantage? Jokic, the absolute best in the West for me. I was very tempted to go with a couple other players. They just didn't play the games. It's very hard for me to have a guy who didn't play the games not be the best in the West. Now, there was particularly a team that did have a better run through this period, but the reason they had that run didn't play in all the games. It makes it very hard for me to select that team's person. Jokic, again though, another standout season. Another top 5 season. Another top 3 season. What more can you say? Just the model of consistency gets it done. Golden State, a slight bit of resurgence. They're 1 game below 500, 6-5 over this period. Defeated Portland 3 times as well as Brooklyn, Boston and Washington. They then lost out to the Thunder, the Suns, the Clippers, the Nuggets and the Heat. And they're doing this off the back of some inconsistent Steph Curry form as well. 24.6 points, 3.7 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 0.7 steals and 0.6 blocks, less than 3 turnovers, but not ideal shooting, less than 43% from the field. For Steph, less than 40% from deep, which is never good for him. 37.2% over that period to be correct, but still stroking it from the free throw line. I just don't really know what's going to happen. Draymond's out indefinitely. There's trade talk with Andrew Wiggins. That leaves Clay and Steph. And Clay's indicated that he's probably going to be a free agent. this team could look wildly different at the trade period, let alone wildly different at the end of the season starting next. Don't be too shocked by it. But Golden State are making a little bit of a run. Just enough to keep people wondering, keep people guessing. You've only got to be in it to win it. And I think they're too old to win it, but they certainly may be in it. Keep monitoring that situation there. For Houston, 7-6 through that period, 15-15, 500 through 30 games. As a Houston fan, not something that I thought was going to happen. I don't know any Houston fan that predicted 15-15 and to be a genuine playoff playing team. But here's where they sit. Got wins against Oklahoma City, Denver, San Antonio, defeated Dallas, defeated New Orleans, and got Memphis twice. They did lose, though, to Milwaukee, Cleveland, Atlanta, Indiana, Philadelphia, and Phoenix. Alfred Şengün, just continuing to be Alfred Şengün. 21.2 points, 9.3 rebounds, 4.6 assists. Just another big European centre that can do it all. And has footwork and has a skill set. He's probably the third best European centre of that ilk. Of course, behind Jokic and Sabonis. Just a really solid big, some really solid players around them. 15-15 through 30. Houston fans will take that. We could have a 40-win season when we didn't expect to get a 30-win season. So we will take that. Steps are being made in the right direction. The Clippers, through this period, 10-2. Again, tied for the second best record over this time span. 19-12 on the season. A lot of it to do with the man who's not going to be featured in the video, but is in the photo there. Got wins against Denver, Utah, Portland, Sacramento, Golden State, New York, Indiana, Dallas, Charlotte, Memphis, lost to Oklahoma City and Boston. James Harden, not the reason for the constant amount of wins, but certainly has been crucial with some good efficiency. 19.9 points, 5.3 rebounds, 9.7 assists, 1.3 steals and 1.5 blocks. 46.3 from the field, 44.6 from deep, and over 85% from the free throw line. The real crucial one to this one, really simple. It's Kawhi Leonard. Unfortunately, though, Kawhi's now out. And we don't know why Kawhi's out. No one's saying why Kawhi's out. We don't know when Kawhi's going to be back in. That is a worrying sign for the Clippers, who could have been close to 9 games ahead of 500 had he not been injured. And at one point there throughout the month, Kawhi was in my MVP conversation. He was in my top 10, comfortably might I add. And I still think he's been one of the 12 best players in the West, and I still think he's been the best player for the Clippers this year. But he's injured, he's out, and no one knows why. And that's not a good sign for a guy who looked like he was going to get at least 65 games under his belt, and now we don't have a timetable for return. See how the Clippers handle it. To the Lakers, 5-6, 17-15, so they're keeping their head above water, but haven't been able to do much since the play-in tournament. Defeated Phoenix, New Orleans, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Charlotte, but they also lost to San Antonio, as well as Dallas, New York, Chicago, Minnesota, and Boston. Austin Reeves, the only one to play all 11 games throughout that period. Had a really nice run as well, a genuine third option, and I think most teams would take Austin Reeves the way he's playing now as a third option. 17.7 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 50-40-90 splits, less than 3 turnovers a game. Can't ask for much more than that. The only problem is when Anthony Davis is in the game and getting touches, and LeBron James in the game getting touches, either AD gets them too late and can't get into form, LeBron has too many of them, or they're the only two contributing. Recording now after they've lost by 2 points to Minnesota. Go and look at how that looked. Wasn't friendly. Wasn't good. So, I mean, the Lakers still, at the moment, the way they're starting to sort out, they're going to be a playing team at best. And it was really weird to see everyone extremely high on the Lakers pre-season. Who did they sign? Who did they get? Not enough to certainly make up any difference that they've got on their opponents, but they're above 500, only just. It'll be interesting to see how that lasts, but Austin Reeves with a really nice run through that period. Memphis, 5-7, 10-21 on the year, looking to turn it around. Ja Morant back into the lineup. Wins against Detroit, twice against New Orleans, as well as Indiana and Atlanta. They did lose out to Minnesota, did lose out to Dallas, lost to Houston twice. as well as Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Clippers. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr. with a really nice spot there. Over 50% from the field, over 40% from deep, over 70% from the line. In fact, over 80% from the line. 23.6 points, 4.8 rebounds, 1.3 assists. Good defensive numbers. But Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are the reason they are winning games. Ja Morant especially is the reason they're winning games. And Ja Morant right now has the same argument, albeit with a smaller sample size, has the same argument Embiid has. As far as this team isn't good when I'm not there. It's the same situation in Memphis. No one wants to talk about it. It's the exact same situation. We'll see how that continues to unfold. Obviously, Ja Morant can't garner any awards this year, but I mean, Memphis are certainly a chance to track back to 500 well before the end of the season. I mean, they're 11 games back, but they're going to play some bad teams at some point and going to get wins. They're going to play some good teams and they're going to be better for it. Let's see what happens. Let's see how they go. Memphis bound to make a run. Team that has made a run, the best team in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 8-3 through this period, 23-7 on the season, defeated San Antonio, Memphis, Indiana, Miami, the Lakers, the Kings, and defeated Dallas twice. They also lost to New Orleans, Philadelphia, and OKC. Now, leading the way through this period, because he played in all games again. Most of these guys, outside of one or two, unless I mention it, are the only players that played in all of their team's games through this period. Mike Conley was that guy. Lucky he had epic efficient splits. 13.7 points, 2.7 rebounds, 6.1 assists, good defensive numbers, low turnovers, good shooting splits. 50-50-90 shooting splits. Which is also helpful when you've got arguably 3 other all-star players on your team. One of them all-NBA level, the other all-defensive level. And depending on how he keeps playing, may very well, if you're going to vote traditionally, you could make a very good case that Rudy Gobert is all-NBA again. It's not going to happen, but you can make a case. I think he's certainly going to be all-defensive. He has a genuine case as the Defensive Player of the Year. I think some guy in LA might get that, or should get that. It's just something to observe. But Mike Conley in this position is perfect. A guy who can play his role, who can let the other 3 guys star, who can let their main star absolutely fly and control. He's been perfect for them. Minnesota have been really good this year. And, you've got a 6-man of the year contender in Naz Reid with the team as well. A lot going right with Minnesota right now. They are the team in the West. And everybody else is chasing them. There's only 1 or 2 teams in the league that are right now record-wise competing. Only 2. Maybe a third, but I'd say 2. And they're both in the other conference. Sticking back in the West, though, New Orleans 6-4 through this period, 18-4. They're above 500 and starting to make a little bit of noise in the lower seeds for the postseason. Defeated Minnesota, Washington, Charlotte, San Antonio, Cleveland, and Utah. They did lose out to the Lakers, lost to the Grizzlies twice, and Houston. Brandon Ingram continuing to play a really solid role and complementing nicely against Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum. Jonas Valanciunas as well. 22.3 points, 3.7 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Efficient shooting splits, 50-40-90 splits. Again, can't fault anyone that's going to have a 50-40-90 shooting split. Continues to play that way. Zion Williamson has accepted that role, playing really nicely. CJ McCollum's back, playing really nicely. Again, New Orleans have the pieces and the ability. Larry Nance is coming back in. That's an athletic body to come back into your side. This is a team that can cause a stir. Don't play them lightly. Winning record through this period, 4 games above 500 towards the end of December. New Orleans are going to be happy. They're tracking to be 8, 9, 10 games above 500 by the time the season's over. That's a playoff team. That's easily a playoff team. See how it goes. See how it continues to pan out here for New Orleans, but I think they probably can scrape, certainly if they're not playing in, certainly the very, very bottom seeds if they can surprise a few teams. Speaking of teams that have surprised everyone and really just taken that next step, especially for those that weren't paying any attention to them, the Oklahoma City Thunder, 8-3 through this period, 21-9 on the season, defeated Golden State, Utah, the Nuggets twice, Memphis, the Clippers, Minnesota, and New York. Lost out to Houston, Sacramento, and the Lakers. And for me, the best player in the NBA this season leading the way. Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points, 5.7 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 3.2 steals, and 0.7 blocks a game in this period. Just ridiculous stuff. Shooting over 56% from the field, over 88% from the free throw line. Awesome stuff. The best shooting guard in the NBA. And to me, arguably the best player in the NBA this season. I had another video out in a couple of days. I'll let you work out what that means at this point. Just an absolute nightmare. Over to Phoenix, 4-7 on the season, 16-15. They were red hot. And then they hit a slump. And they slumped against teams they shouldn't have slumped against. Now they're one game above 500 and battling to stay within that reach. Defeated Golden State, Washington, Houston, and Charlotte. Well done. Houston's the best team of that lot. It's not saying much. They lost to the Lakers, twice to the Kings, the Nets, the Knicks, the Blazers, and the Mavericks. And Devin Booker started to find a new side of him. He's almost doing a James Harden-esque transformation. 26.8 points, 4.7 rebounds, 7.9 assists, less than 3 turnovers, 0.6 steals, 0.5 blocks. 48% from the field, 36% from deep, 84% from the free throw line. If Devin Booker can take up that James Harden style role, where he's going to score 25 to 30 a game, he's going to be an efficient, not that part of James Harden's game, but he's going to be an efficient scorer, and he can facilitate, it just makes Phoenix a lot more dangerous. A lot more dangerous. I would not want to play them if he was in a really good facilitating mode, and then all of a sudden Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal start knocking down shots. That becomes a genuine worry, a genuine concern, and a genuine issue. You would not want to be taking on that risk, because that is worrying. That is really, really worrying. So I wonder whether Phoenix can just do it. I don't know whether they can hold on for long enough. I don't know whether everyone can bounce back. Plenty of trade talk and rumours around them as well. But if Devin Booker is going to play almost that point guard level role, and he's going to provide that level of scoring when he needs to be called upon, that's a dangerous team. Speaking of dangerous, and that's Portland. You might get hit in the head by a missed shot. 3-9 on the season. 3-9 on the period. 9-22 on the season. One of the 5 worst teams in basketball. Certainly up there as one of the 5 worst teams in basketball. Defeated Phoenix, Sacramento, and San Antonio, but they did lose out 3 times to Golden State, twice to Dallas, and then lost to the Clippers, the Jazz, Washington, and San Antonio. Scoot Henderson starting to come along a little bit here. 14.8 points, 2.9 rebounds, 5.2 assists. Is the only rookie with points and assists double-doubles this season. Really bounced back after a real struggle, and plenty of people I've spoken to, I certainly voiced the opinion to them that if you're not ready for college, if you're not ready to finish college, then don't finish college. You've got NIL money you can earn now. It's not NBA money, but NIL money is still money. Not bad for when you turn up to the school for free. Quote. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks. Inefficient shooting splits, but it's good to see he's trying to lift a little bit there. Portland, just a team that's sitting there. Just another team. Full of guys who can contribute on teams in major roles when they contend, but that is why they're on those teams in those roles, because they're not leaders. Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, just saying, makes a lot of sense. Guys that want to be stars, but don't have that forward outlook to want to do that. That's Portland for you. Damian Lillard's gone. They need a new era, and they've tried to build that around Ayton, Scoot Henderson, Robert Williams is out for the season, Malcolm Brogdon now trying to shoulder a bit of the load. And I don't blame him, Jeremy Grant. Guys that want to contribute, but are better off trying to contribute on other teams. Sacramento, they're still about 18-12, 7-4 through this period. Defeated Phoenix twice, as well as Brooklyn, Oklahoma City, Utah, Washington, and Atlanta. They then lost out to the Clippers, Boston, Minnesota, and Portland. Played all their games through this period, and I still think they're a better team when he's running the offense, and he's the guy with the dominant amount of touches, and that's Domantas Sabonis. 20.7 points, 12.3 rebounds, 7.8 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks, less than 3 turnovers. He's not as efficient from the perimeter and the free throw line as Jokic, but from the field he is. They are a better side when he runs the offense. It's evident they're a better side when he runs the offense. They play better, they look better when he runs the offense. And De'Aaron Fox has said he's not going to commit. And Keegan Murray started the ball out. I think Sacramento will look a little different. I don't know how much different, but they will look a little different next year. It'll be very interesting to see how different they look. But it's clear that Sabonis is going to be that number one option. And don't get me wrong, De'Aaron Fox is having a really good season. I think they're both all-star level players this year. There's no doubt about it for Sacramento. But it's much like Indiana. Okay, their offense isn't as good, but neither's their defense. So they're going to run points up in the West. They're just going to concede a lot of them as well. Interesting time if you are a Sacramento Kings fan with a really good team that's just a perennial first-round contender. Makes it really tough to try and get anything out of them. Speaking of tough to get anything out of, like a $2 stake, that's the Spurs. 2-10 through the period, 5-26 on the season. Thank God for Detroit, they say. Wins against Portland and the Lakers, lost to Chicago twice, as well as Minnesota, Houston, lost the Lakers on the return. Lost to New Orleans, Milwaukee, Dallas, Utah, and had the loss in return against Portland. So overall, an 0-8 week when you cancel out wins and losses. Keldon Johnson, their best player. One guy didn't play the whole amount of time and doesn't get the touches that he should. And that's the thing with the Spurs. Just get the ball to Wemby and get out of the way. Get these really roughshod second options. Get them out for veterans. I don't even care if the veterans come off the bench and you keep those young guys as starters. There's no culture. There's no mentorship. Nothing in the way right now for San Antonio. As I said, Keldon Johnson, their best player in the week. 19.2 points, 5.9 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1 steal, 0.2 blocks, less than 3 turnovers, mildly acceptable splits. Get the ball to Wemby, get out of the way, and honestly, this team is better by 15 wins just with veteran presence, of which they have none. So that says a lot. Finally, in the West, the Jazz. 6-6 through this period, which was mildly impressive. Lauri Markkanen having a couple of good games as well. 13-19 on the season, so they're back towards where they were this time last year, except they didn't have a 12-3 run to start it all. Defeated the Knicks, the Blazers, the Nets, the Pistons, the Raptors, and the Spurs, and lost out to Dallas, the Clippers, Oklahoma City, Sacramento, Cleveland, and New Orleans. Colin Sexton really stepping up there, 20.8 points, 3.1 rebounds, 4.2 assists. His best run of the season so far, finding a bit of form, less than 2 turnovers, reasonable splits there. It's just a wonder of what Utah's going to really do. Because now they're talking about Lauri Markkanen not being there, and Jordan Clarkson not being there. I can't not trust Danny Ainge though. That's my big thing with Utah, is Danny Ainge has such a good, effective track record in these situations, I can't doubt him. I don't know exactly what's going to go on there, but they might try and pull the trigger, try and move a few pieces, score a few draft picks, try and rebuild something, see how that all goes. I mean, everyone thought Utah was silly for getting rid of Gobert and getting rid of Mitchell. Everyone thought Minnesota, it was not going to work. Everyone thought, Cleveland, it's not going to work. There's talk about busting Cleveland up again, but really, it's going okay. Minnesota's the best team in the West. Utah have a lot of pieces. You know, you look at Colin Sexton, you look at Lauri Markkanen, when your best young player is Walker Kessler, and Keontae George has been all right, but, I mean, they've got to do something with Walker Kessler as well, and they haven't been able to find anything with that. So, Utah, nice little period there, but again, Danny Ainge has to have something up his sleeve. No doubt he's going to look to try and make some trades, try and get some pieces into this team here. As I mentioned earlier, best player in the West was Nikola Jokic through this period. Denver went 9-4. He's continuing to have a top 3 season. And he would be the best player in the West if it wasn't for a guy who's playing, numbers-wise, like Jordan as a two-guard. That's all I have to say about that. So a brief little rundown of this last few-week period, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, looking to get back into it more routinely, week by week, starting on the following Sunday from here. Trying to get a balance, trying to get everything right. I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate you watching this video, subscribing, interacting, all of that sort of stuff. Thanks again, guys. That's me. I'm out.